A strange feeling washed over a young girl with dark hair as she peeked from a doorway and saw another girl who looked just like her. It was her own reflection. Confused, she thought her dark hair and eyes made her look like a Japanese doll. This idea triggered a memory of Japan, and her heart began to pound. Suddenly she understood. Her name was now Yumiella Darkness, and she was 5 years old. At the same time, she had 20 years of memories from a past life as a Japanese university student. The rush of memories felt like too much to handle. To make sense of everything, she picked up a quill to write down what she knew. She was the daughter of a count in the Valshine kingdom. Her parents lived far away in the royal capital, and she lived on the family's land. Yumiella finds a book but cannot read the text and realizes she needs to learn more about this world. She overhears two maids whispering about how terrifying she is with her strange writing and unsettling black hair. She approaches them and asks to learn how to read, and they nervously agree to arrange a private tutor for her. After this interaction, she lies on her bed feeling utterly alone and concludes that everyone in this place must hate her. Once she learns to read, she immerses herself in the manners study, reading every book she can find from children's stories to political texts. She learns about the kingdom's history, geography, and the legend of a saint who defeated a demon lord. It is then that she discovers that dark hair is considered a symbol of evil because the demon lord had black hair. This explains the cold and distant behavior of the maids and her parents' abandonment and leads her to a shocking realization. She recognizes that this world is the exact setting of an Otome RPG called Light Magic: A Tale of Heroes that she played in her past life. The game she remembers was set in a world of swords and sorcery where the commoner heroine uses light magic and attends a royal academy meant for nobles. The story involved building relationships with various love interests while leveling up through RPG sections to eventually defeat the demon lord and achieve a happy ending. Yumiella recalls her role in the game was that of a minor villain, a bully who pesters the heroine. She remembers that what she truly enjoyed about the game was its battle system and the extensive endgame content, which included a secret hidden boss. To her horror, she realizes that the incredibly powerful hidden boss was her character Yumiella Darkness. In the game, this hidden boss was unfairly difficult to defeat, requiring players to reach the maximum level cap. The usual strategies against the demon lord were ineffective against her because she possessed both devastating physical attacks and powerful dark magic. The game's developers explained that her immense power came from her deep-seated hatred for the heroine and her companions. Yumiella sees her future laid out before her, a path where she is destined to become a villain consumed by hate only to be defeated by the game's heroes, leading to a definitive bad end for her. A power forecast chart from the game shows her potential strength towering far above even the demon lord and the heroes, confirming her status as the ultimate unfair boss. Determined to escape this fate, Yumiella sits on her bed and devises a plan. She decides she will simply avoid the heroine and her love interests at the academy, allowing the main story to unfold without her involvement. As a backup plan, she realizes her immense potential power means she could even defeat the demon lord herself with a single strike if needed. With newfound resolve, she sits at her desk ready to write an anti-hidden boss life plan to secure a peaceful existence. Her strategy involves raising her level high enough to handle any threat while staying away from the main characters and key story events to avoid triggering her villain flag. She notes down the game's timeline, marking the moment she is supposed to bully the heroine with a firm reminder not to do it. Her training begins as she sneaks out of the manor's back door into the nearby woods to level up by killing monsters. She finds a small level 1 slime, and though she has never used magic before, she easily dispatches it with a single spell. The slime dissolves, leaving behind a tiny magic stone which she discovers can be sold for money. Feeling the surge of power from leveling up, she feels faster and stronger and finds the sensation addictive. After clearing the entire area of monsters, she decides to become more efficient in her training. After selling the monster drops for cash, she purchases an XP amulet, an item that doubles the experience points she gains. With her new gear, she stands before the imposing entrance to the Darkness Domain dungeon, an area filled with powerful dark-type monsters, and bravely steps inside ready to grind. Day after day, she delves deeper into the dungeon, a place meant for an entire party of adventurers, but she faces it alone. Her ability to see in the dark, a perk of her high level, allows her to navigate the treacherous corridors. She uses a special whistle to summon monsters, relentlessly focusing on leveling up as efficiently as possible, fighting even a massive dragon-like creature. Eventually, she single-handedly clears the entire dungeon, defeating its final boss, a Dullahan. By the time she turns 15, Yumiella enrolls at the Royal Academy, where she is assigned a personal maid named Rita. Rita informs her that she was sent by Lord Darkness to assist her in her school life. That night in her new room, Yumiella collapses onto her bed, exhausted from the journey and the pressures of her new life. She realizes that Rita, a maid from the royal capital, is there not only to serve her but also to watch over her. A letter from her parents, the first she has ever received, instructs her to find a high-ranking noble's son to marry into their family and inherit the domain. During the enrollment ceremony, she feels the weight of everyone's stares and realizes the deep-seated bias against her black hair is worse than she imagined. As the students' levels are being evaluated, a student named William Aries is revealed to be level 10, which shocks the crowd. Yumiella thinks to herself that a level around 5 would have been ideal for staying unnoticed. When her name, Yumiella Dolkness, is called, she steps forward. The evaluator, an old man with glasses, tells her not to worry, as even being level 1 is nothing to be ashamed of. However, as he places his hand on the crystal ball to measure her power, it erupts in a blinding light. The evaluator recoils in shock as the number displayed is an unbelievable 99. As the announcement confirms her identity as the eldest daughter of Count Dolkness at level 99, she looks out at the Grand Academy building, realizing that her hope for a quiet, peaceful life has just come to an end. The commotion begins when the measuring sphere repeatedly shows Yumiella's level as 99, causing the surrounding students to chatter in disbelief. A young blonde man approaches her, asking for an explanation, and Yumiella internally admits she knows exactly why it's happening. She calmly informs him that there has been no mistake and she is simply level 99, but he accuses her of interfering with the device, insisting that leveling up requires defeating monsters. The headmaster intervenes, silencing the crowd and announcing that the truth will become clear when classes start, before instructing Yumiella to introduce herself and take her seat. As she walks to her seat, Yumiella considers her worst-case scenario of fleeing the country but feels confident she can manage with her power. She spots the game's heroine, who is level 1, and notes that unlike in the game where the commoner heroine was the center of attention, here she is completely ignored. Her plan to stay inconspicuous is immediately thwarted when a loud voice calls out to the girl with the black hair. It is William Aries, one of the game's main love interests, whom she was actively trying to avoid. He aggressively confronts her, calling her a cheater for messing with the sphere and accusing her of trying to stand out. Just as William's temper flares, another young man steps in to de-escalate the situation. Yumiella recognizes the newcomer as Edwin Valshine, the second prince and the main hero of the game. She formally introduces herself, and Edwin acknowledges her, though she internally mutters a derogatory term she heard about her family. She wonders why everyone is so quick to call her a cheater, and Edwin explains that William worked tirelessly to reach level 10, so her claim of being level 99 disrespects his hard work. At that moment, a third love interest, the glasses-wearing Oswald Grimsard, arrives and dismisses her claim as an unbelievable lie. With all three main love interests gathered, Yumiella realizes her plan to stay away from them has failed. The trio, known as Ed, Will, and Oz, grew up together and share a close bond. In an attempt to divert their attention, she suggests they check on the new commoner student, a rare user of light magic, before excusing herself. Back in her room, Yumiella is exhausted while her maid, Rita, notes her early return from the welcome party she didn't even attend. Rita reminds her of her duty to find a husband, which will trouble her father if she fails. Yumiella then asks Rita about the term, would-be central, which she overheard. Rita explains it is a derogatory term for regional nobles, like the Dolkness family, who neglect their own domains to live idly in the royal capital. The following day in class, Yumiella is completely isolated, with other students whispering about her. Thanks to her high-level senses, she can hear them mock her, wondering if she has a flower bed for brains. Meanwhile, she observes the game's heroine, Alicia in Light, already becoming close with the love interests, a development that is happening much faster than in the original game. This deviation makes Yumiella worry that her presence is altering the story script. As she watches Alicia, who is known for being positive and cheerful, she notes that the heroine's rare light magic makes her the key to defeating the Demon Lord. Suddenly, Alicia turns and glares directly at her, leaving Yumiella confused. During the afternoon's practical swordsmanship training, the instructor decides to hold sparring matches to verify the students' levels and immediately calls on Yumiella. William immediately steps up to be her opponent, and as Yumiella holds the wooden practice sword, her only thought is how to avoid accidentally killing him. She remembers a time when her physical strength suddenly spiked, causing a monster to explode from a single hit. Now facing William, she knows his life depends entirely on her ability to control her immense power. She tells William it is her first time using a sword and invites him to begin, which he takes as mockery. Enraged, he charges at her, vowing to break her bones. To Yumiella, his attack appears incredibly slow. She effortlessly sidesteps his swing, pokes him, and trips him, sending him sprawling to the ground in front of a silently shocked audience. The instructor declares her the winner, but William rises in a fury, accusing her of cowardice. With a single, casual smack, Yumiella sends him flying across the field. She notes his surprising durability as she walks away, casually deciding to blame the teacher if any trouble arises. The instructor forbids any more sparring and carries the unconscious William to the infirmary himself. Left alone, the other students shuffle away from Yumiella in fear, flinching when she tries to copy their sword forms. The next practical class is magic, where students demonstrate their abilities. After Alicia impresses the crowd with her rare light magic, Oswald, who missed the sword fighting lesson, points out that only Yumiella remains and eagerly anticipates her display. Yumiella asks the instructor if she can destroy the specially made armor target, a feat said to be possible only for the royal sorcerers. Amused, the instructor and Oswald tell her to try. Yumiella reasons that if they can do it, it will be a cinch for her. She casts a tiny, bean-sized dark flame, which initially draws scoffs but then melts the entire armored target into a puddle, stunning everyone. Oswald, in utter disbelief, runs off shouting his refusal to accept the result, while Yumiella laments that the combination of her black hair and dark magic has once again caused trouble. Suddenly, Prince Edwin appears with the headmaster, presenting a document for Yumiella's expulsion on the grounds of lying to the royal family. Alicia speaks up in her defense, arguing that her power is a great asset to the nation, but Edwin demands more definitive proof of her level. The headmaster then asks Yumiella to cast her magic at full strength. She agrees, declaring she will aim it at the sky. Edwin protests about the potential aftermath but takes responsibility when pressed. Yumiella prepares to cast Black Hole, the most powerful dark magic that only she and the Demon Lord can use, a spell she knows has grown far stronger since she last used it as a child. A massive sphere of darkness forms above the academy, removing all physical matter in its range and creating a powerful vacuum that sucks in the surrounding air. The resulting winds knock Prince Edwin to the ground, where he whimpers in terror. Yumiella appears before him and, with a forced smile, asks if that was enough to convince him of her leveled a portrait of Prince Edwin, who looks on with a serious expression. The day after her dramatic display of power, Yumiella is summoned to the royal castle for an audience with the king. As she is announced and enters the grand throne room, she can hear the royal guards whispering about her. They comment on her unsettling black hair, her unbelievable level 99 status, and her family's reputation as would-be centralists. Inside, she kneels before the king and queen, seeing them for the first time as they sit upon their thrones. The king instructs her to raise her head and immediately offers his deepest apologies for the rude treatment she received from his son and the academy's staff. Yumiella is relieved to sense no hostility from the royal couple regarding her black hair, though she is flustered by the king's apology and in turn apologizes for causing confusion with her unexpected power. The king acknowledges that her small stature makes her immense power difficult to believe and that many of his subjects still doubt her. However, he declares that the way she was judged was unreasonable, as there were many other ways her abilities could have been properly assessed. To settle the matter, he calls upon Captain Adolf of the Knight Corps, the kingdom's strongest knight, to officially verify her strength. Adolf is said to be around level 60, a level considered necessary to face the Demon Lord, and his judgment is considered absolute. Without warning, Adolf dashes toward Yumiella with incredible speed, intending to test her with his full power. Unsure of the rules of engagement, she instinctively dodges his attack by feigning a deep bow. Adolf stops his sword just shy of her neck and declares to the court that he believes she is indeed level 99. He apologizes for the surprise attack, explaining it was the king's order. The king, impressed by her superb physical abilities, then asks for a demonstration of her magic, and Yumiella agrees. Yumiella casts a Shadow Lance, a rare and menacing dark magic spell that makes the throne room rumble. The king consults the chief royal sorcerer, who explains that dark magic is simply another type of magic, not inherently evil. Like light magic, it is incredibly powerful, and its danger lies entirely with the person who wields it. He adds that because it is so rare and often used by powerful monsters, people judge it based on its appearance. The king reflects that people fear what they don't understand, which is likely the reason black hair is also detested. Yumiella realizes this entire conversation is being held for her benefit, to publicly dispel the prejudices against her. The king then asks her to explain how she reached such a high level, a feat no one has achieved before. Yumiella enthusiastically details her efficient training methods, which included hunting in the forest, buying an XP amulet, clearing a dungeon by herself, and using a monster summoner's whistle to fight hordes of enemies at once. Her explanation horrifies the court. The guards call her a monster for entering a high-level dungeon alone and using a summoning whistle without a protective amulet, which is considered suicidal. Captain Adolf admits that even he would be too terrified to attempt such a thing, leaving Yumiella confused by their shocked reactions. Convinced of her power, the king asks her to become a sword for the nation, and she accepts, pledging to be a shield for the kingdom. He promises to call on her in times of crisis and offers her any reward she desires, including a noble title, her own domain, or even marriage into the royal family. Yumiella understands this is their way of ensuring a monster, like her, remains loyal. However, she declines all rewards, stating that her only desire is a peaceful life for herself and the kingdom. The king, a reasonable man, respects her wish and vows to help her achieve it, concluding the audience. Afterward, Yumiella is unexpectedly led to a private room for tea with the queen. The queen welcomes her warmly and insists on an informal, private conversation where they can speak freely. She praises Yumiella, expressing relief that her immense power is in trustworthy hands and stating that she and the king are quite fond of her. The queen reveals that she can sense people's true intentions and knows Yumiella genuinely wants nothing to do with the royal family's power, which is why she trusts her. Getting to the heart of the matter, the queen reveals a state secret. The demon lord is prophesied to be reborn in 2 years, and they need Yumiella's help to defeat him. She shows Yumiella a map marking the demon lord's castle in Anemone and explains their two-part plan. A large defensive force led by the first prince, Maurice, and a smaller elite team to strike the demon lord directly. The elimination of the demon lord is the sacred duty of the royal family, a foundation of their nation's history. The queen proposes that the elite team be led by Prince Edwin and include Alicia, Captain Adolf, and Yumiella. Seeing an opportunity to defeat the demon lord without taking the credit, Yumiella suggests that with her at level 99, the team's victory is assured, thus allowing Captain Adolf to remain with the main defensive army where he is most needed. The queen agrees this is a splendid idea but then adds Edwin's friends, William and Oswald, to the elite team, shocking Yumiella. The queen cheerfully explains that this will make it easy for them all to train together at the academy. When Yumiella points out that Edwin's level is too low, the queen brushes it off with motherly pride, insisting her son can do anything. The queen then playfully suggests Yumiella could marry Prince Edwin or his brother Maurice after becoming a saint by defeating the demon lord, an offer Yumiella internally rejects immediately as it is the antithesis of a peaceful life. The queen then explains the nation's political factions. The royal family leads the moderate Central Party, while the warmongering extremist faction, led by Duke Hilros, opposes them. Yumiella's own family, as would-be Centrals, are aligned with the extremists, meaning they will likely try to force her into an engagement with the Hilros family. To protect her, the queen issues a royal order forbidding Yumiella's marriage for 3 years, until she graduates. She warns Yumiella to be wary of the extremists and foreign nations now that her power is known. The long conversation ends late at night, and Yumiella leaves thinking the queen is a strange but caring person who also wants to keep her as a weapon for the kingdom. The most intriguing part of the discussion for Yumiella was learning that the demon lord controls monsters with dark power, making her wonder if she might have the same ability. Upon returning to her dorm, she finds that her father has already sent photos of potential marriage candidates, but she ignores them to share the box of sweets from the queen with a delighted Rita. The week following Yumiella's audience at the castle, a period during which she unexpectedly became the most popular girl at the academy. Her newfound fame was especially prominent among the sons of high-ranking nobility. Day in and day out, she found herself approached by suitors, politely declining their invitations with a practiced phrase. The shift in her social standing was noticeable even with her classmates, who had once completely ignored her but now offered greetings in the morning. She reflected that they previously saw her as someone too dangerous to even speak to, whispering about her mysterious nature and unsettling black hair. The only person whose behavior remained unchanged was Alicia, who continued to stare at her with an intense, unreadable expression. As for the game's main love interests, Prince Edwin had offered a brief apology the day after the audience, and they had not interacted since. William, however, was still visibly annoyed by her presence. Yumiella found herself constantly fending off advances from members of the extremist political faction, who had extreme ambitions. One suitor eagerly described a future where she would act as his ultimate weapon to decimate enemy nations, while he handled the political matters as her husband, allowing them to rule over a vast empire. This became a common theme. Just as the queen had warned, sons of the nobility began approaching her immediately after her visit to the castle. The extremists were aggressive in their recruitment, offering precious stones and marriage proposals, all of which she refused. In contrast, the moderates were much easier to interact with. They brought her sweets and invited her to tea parties, seeking to build a connection without overtly discussing politics. The most persistent of the extremists continued his pitch, promising to buy her all the jewels and dresses she could want if she, with her raven black hair, would become his wife and help him conquer the continent. After listening to his tirade, she simply refused. To shut down any further proposals, she declared that she was only interested in men who were stronger than her. This had become her ultimate, foolproof method of refusal over the past few days. The suitor, however, was undeterred, laughing that brains are more important than brawn in the modern age and proclaiming himself a genius. Yumiella then cleverly turned his logic against him, asking who would be in charge of governance in their supposed empire. When he confidently claimed the role for himself, she led him to admit that his plan to rule the continent would involve overthrowing the current royal family, an act of treason punishable by death. The realization terrified him, and he fled after she advised him to keep his distance to avoid suspicion. She was, she thought, saved by the stupidity of a self-proclaimed genius. Though dealing with these daily annoyances was tedious, it had the benefit of keeping her away from Prince Edwin and Alicia, steering her clear of the path that would lead her to become the game's hidden boss. Her main goal was to avoid the Hillrose family, particularly the Duke's daughter, Eleonora. Eleonora was the leader of the Academy's female students and the daughter of the extremist faction's head, rumored to be a tyrant who abused her family's power. Yumiella knew that simply being seen with her could be misinterpreted as joining their faction. Just then, Eleonora herself appeared, expressing a keen interest in talking with Yumiella. Recognizing Eleonora as the exact type of sparkling, popular girl she normally avoids, Yumiella knew an encounter was inevitable and reluctantly accepted an invitation to a tea party. At the party, Yumiella felt completely out of place, lacking any knowledge of fashion, trends, or romance. She survived the idle chit-chat by relying on a holy trinity of generic responses, "Is that so? Amazing," and "Please, tell me more," while having no idea what Eleonora was talking about. Observing Eleonora surrounded by her followers, Yumiella felt that the roles of villain and heroine had been severely miscast. Eleonora finally got to her point, demanding that Yumiella give up on Prince Edwin. She revealed she knew about the Queen's marriage proposal and declared that Yumiella was unsuitable for the prince, threatening to make her an enemy if she didn't comply. Yumiella calmly stated that she had already refused the proposal, offering as proof the fact that a week had passed with no official announcement and she had not spoken to the prince beyond his brief apology. Eleonora, though momentarily confused, accepted her reasoning. Yumiella then turned the situation around, explaining that marrying the prince was politically equivalent to joining the extremist faction, and she found neither option appealing. She then declared that the most suitable person for the prince was Eleonora herself. This flustered Eleonora, who began gushing about the prince, revealing that her motivation was personal affection rather than political ambition. After this encounter, Yumiella's life settled into a new routine. While she preferred to be invisible, she settled for keeping a low profile. In the cafeteria, there was now only a single empty chair separating her from her classmates, a barrier no one crossed. One day, however, a girl asked if she could sit there. Yumiella recognized her as Jessica, the character who was supposed to be Alicia's first friend in the game, though she hadn't seen them together since the start of school. Before Jessica could sit down, Alicia approached Yumiella's table with a serious look on her face. She looked directly at Yumiella and asked a startling question, "Are you the Demon Lord?" The Academy cafeteria, where Alicia has just publicly asked Yumiella if she is the Demon Lord, causing the other students to erupt in shocked whispers. Yumiella reflects that in a country that discriminates against black hair, the title Demon Lord is treated like a forbidden name. She calmly asks Alicia how she came to know about the Demon Lord's return, a top-secret matter known only to a select few. Alicia explains that Prince Edwin, whom she calls Ed, told her that the Demon Lord would be resurrected in 2 years. Yumiella is internally stunned that Alicia is on a nickname basis with the prince after only a week and furious that Edwin is casually leaking national secrets. She asks if the prince specifically identified her as the Demon Lord, but Alicia admits he did not. She made the connection herself because of Yumiella's black hair. Just as Yumiella asks for evidence, the love interests arrive to comfort a tearful Alicia, with William immediately accusing Yumiella of upsetting her. Yumiella explains the situation, stating that she only denied Alicia's ludicrous claims and asks Edwin to clear up the misunderstanding, reminding him that the Demon Lord's return is a state secret. Instead of helping, Edwin loudly confirms to the entire cafeteria that the Demon Lord is indeed returning in 2 years, a truth known only to a few, effectively making the secret public. William takes this as proof and points accusingly at Yumiella, declaring her the Demon Lord. Yumiella denies this, thinking to herself that while she is the game's hidden boss, she is not the main villain. William argues that she will surely commit evil acts in the future, but Yumiella calmly retorts that the law does not prosecute for future crimes. Frustrated, William declares that he will judge her himself. Deciding he is a lost cause, Yumiella turns to Oswald, hoping for a more reasoned response, and asks if he also believes she is the Demon Lord. Oswald replies that he wishes to believe Alicia, as she was the one who encouraged him when he had lost faith in himself. At this, Yumiella internally concludes that they are all idiots. She realizes that her own overwhelming power has accelerated the game's plot, forcing the love interests to confide their weaknesses in Alicia and strengthen their bonds far earlier than scheduled. Oswald even admits that he believes Yumiella's strength rivals the Demon Lord's, and that she has become the catalyst for their rapid progress with Alicia. Seeing that they are determined to view her as an antagonist, Yumiella decides to lean into the role to motivate them. She tells them that they are all far too weak and must become much stronger to defeat her. She declares that they have the potential but need to level up, especially Alicia, who must hone her light magic to counter the Demon Lord's dark powers. She then offers to teach them the basics of leveling up, believing this act of generosity might improve their opinion of her. In a grand speech to the stunned cafeteria, Yumiella lectures them on her hardcore, high-risk, high-reward training methods, soloing dungeons, using monster summoning whistles, swapping defensive gear for XP amulets, and sending Alicia into dark-type dungeons despite her light magic affinity. Her advice is met with horrified silence, which she mistakes for awe. Prince Edwin finally erupts, shouting that she is trying to get them killed with an insane training regimen. When she offers to personally assist them, he flatly rejects her help, declares they will do things their own way, and storms off with his friends. The other students begin to whisper fearfully, concluding that Yumiella was trying to lure the prince to his death. Realizing her attempt to help has backfired spectacularly, Yumiella begins to wonder if Alicia's irrational fear stems from her also being a reincarnated person with knowledge of the game. She decides to investigate. After school, Yumiella follows Alicia and observes her throughout the day. She concludes that Alicia is just an ordinary, good-natured girl who is naive about noble customs, just as she was in the game. Alicia is kind to everyone, including animals, and the only person she acts strangely around is Yumiella herself. To test the theory, Yumiella tries to approach the same cat Alicia had been petting earlier. Despite using a perfect, stealthy technique, the cat shrieks in terror and flees the moment it sees her, confirming Yumiella's suspicion that animals are inherently afraid of her new body. During this, she is spotted by a male classmate who awkwardly pretends not to have seen anything. Later, Yumiella peeks into the library and sees a classic Otome game scene unfolding. Prince Edwin is helping Alicia with her studies. She watches as Alicia asks him why he thought she was the Demon Lord. Edwin explains that he never got the chance to tell her that his father, the king, had already confirmed Yumiella was not the Demon Lord because she ran off so quickly. Alicia then explains that she perceives Yumiella as a hazy mass of darkness with a terrifying aura that only she can see, possibly due to her light magic. Edwin is shocked but reaffirms that despite her ridiculous strength, Yumiella is not their enemy. This leads to a heartfelt moment where Alicia resolves to use her magic to save the world, and Edwin promises to fight alongside her. Yumiella, watching from outside, concludes that Alicia is not reincarnated and that the game's plot is simply progressing in a very dramatic fashion. Returning to her room, she is greeted by Rita, who has received more sweets from the queen on her behalf. Rita also presents a new stack of marriage proposals from her father, which Yumiella immediately tosses aside. The next day after school, she is summoned to the headmaster's office, where she is met by a man who introduces himself as Ronald, the new headmaster of the academy. A look back at Yumiella in her younger times, showing the small girl sitting alone in a large, ornate chair. In her room, a young Yumiella stands before a mirror, feeling frustrated because the servants avoid her due to her black hair, and she wonders how to change their impression of her. She considers cutting her hair short but quickly decides against it, thinking it makes her look too much like a Japanese doll. She then tries putting her hair up in pigtails but is not fond of that style either. She thinks about dyeing her hair but dismisses the idea as too much of a hassle to maintain. Since no one is willing to get close enough to touch her hair, she realizes she would have to cut it herself. Ultimately, she decides to simply let it grow as long as it can, amusing herself with the thought of resembling a noble lady from the ancient Heian period and looking forward to seeing the result. Later, a maid serves Yumiella a large cake, and she enjoys a cookie with a look of pure bliss on her face. In the background, two other servants whisper to each other, commenting that while she is creepy, she also has a childish side. They feel they must use this opportunity to win her over, as they are terrified of when she might unleash her dark magic. Afterwards, a tutor arrives for her dancing lessons, telling her to practice in her room. Yumiella agrees but is left wondering how she is supposed to practice dancing all by herself. That night, she sits on her bed and decides she needs a practice partner. She conjures a shadowy tendril from her magic, a spell called Dark Bind, and forms it into a hand to hold her own. Creating more shadowy appendages from her feet, she thinks this will work perfectly. In front of her window, she gracefully practices her dance steps, with the dark tendrils swirling around her as if they were a real partner. A maid who peeks in on her is frozen in silent terror, trembling at the eerie sight. Later, Yumiella lies contentedly on her bed, playing rock-paper-scissors with one of the shadow tentacles, happy to have made a convenient new friend. Yumiella Dolkness meets a new, smiling man after her enrollment. She asks him about the old headmaster, and the man cheerfully explains that circumstances led to the former headmaster's retirement, assuring her she will never see him again. Yumiella keenly observes him, thinking that his smile is completely fake and a textbook example of someone trying too hard to seem trustworthy. The man, who is the new headmaster, invites her to take a seat, revealing he is at the academy by the king's direct order. He knows all about the demon lord situation and tells her to relax, which only makes Yumiella more suspicious of how shady he seems. She recognizes that he must have the king's complete trust to be privy to such a national secret, a thought that aligns with the queen's earlier promise to dispatch one of the king's own men to the academy. The headmaster continues, commenting on how Prince Edwin was quite a handful for blurting out the secret of the demon lord's return in such a public place. He then explains that the prince has been rather unstable lately, and his two best friends who are normally his pillars of support are feeling just as desperate. This is all happening while news spreads across the school about Alicia and the others calling Yumiella the demon lord, adding to the curious stares she has received since she first enrolled. Yumiella immediately asks if something happened to them, internally guessing with 99.9% certainty that she herself is the something that happened. The headmaster confirms her suspicion with a laugh, explaining that the three of them had always been exceptional among their peers, but their pride was shattered by her sudden and overwhelming arrival. He calmly stirs his tea, remarking that it might be best for them to learn about defeat at a young age. He continues, noting that Alicia seems to have a calming effect on the prince and his friends, which he chalks up to the follies of youth. Yumiella is surprised that he even knows about Alicia's involvement with the prince. She then changes the subject, asking if anything can be done about the other students being so terrified of her. The headmaster claims even he is a little scared of her, a statement Yumiella finds completely unbelievable. He advises her to let go of any hope that the rumors will simply disappear, explaining that once a rumor starts, it can never be fully erased, much like how the nation will officially deny the rumors of the demon lord's return despite them spreading. He adds that some of the more cautious people in the palace genuinely worry she could be a threat, as the rumors about her immense power are not without basis. Yumiella understands their concern, considering she appeared out of nowhere already at level 99, but the headmaster reassures her that the king knows for a fact she is not the demon lord. This piques Yumiella's curiosity, and she asks if the royal family has detailed information about the demon lord. The headmaster gives a sly, no comment, which Yumiella immediately interprets as a yes. She realizes this must be why the king was so certain about the 2-year time frame for the demon lord's return. He likely has concrete proof that she isn't the one, a mystery she had been pondering since she overheard the prince in the library. Seeing her train of thought, the headmaster tells her he is her official point of contact with the king and that she should feel free to ask him anything, promising she will get her answers soon. Yumiella is startled, wondering if he just read her mind. She reflects on how enigmatic he is. He is trusted by the king, has known Prince Edwin since he was a child, never introduced himself with a last name, and appears to have the full authority to act on his own judgment, making him impossible for her to figure out. The headmaster senses her thoughts again and remarks that she is not just muscle and magical power, which is why the queen has taken a liking to her and why his own job will be much easier. Yumiella inwardly concedes that he is reading her mind and that she isn't good at dealing with people like him. The headmaster then moves on, explaining their meeting was just to get acquainted, but he has another matter to discuss. He asks her to be a supervisor for the upcoming student field training. This training is essentially a tutorial for leveling up, where the academy creates a safe environment for students to fight weak monsters. Yumiella, being level 99, thinks it's pointless for her to participate. The headmaster clarifies that her role would be to accompany the teacher in charge in the forests outside the kingdom and only respond in case of an emergency, though he doubts she'll be needed. He explains that the students will be split into central nobles and regional nobles, and her specific assignment is to watch over the regional nobles. Yumiella notes that this is a broad division, and the headmaster agrees, adding that there is a good reason for it, as there's a significant difference in how enthusiastically each group approaches leveling up. He elaborates that the central nobles typically graduate to become civil servants or take over their parents' duties, so most see very little benefit in leveling up unless they plan to become knights. The regional nobles, however, are the opposite. Lords of smaller domains often have to fight monsters themselves, and those who are not direct heirs frequently become soldiers, making them much more desperate to get stronger. Yumiella then asks about Prince Edwin's elite team, but the headmaster reassures her that a special training regimen has been prepared just for them, which will ensure they reach at least level 40 within 2 years. Yumiella becomes curious about this special training, thinking that level 60 would be better, but the headmaster dismisses this as an unfeasible goal in just 2 years. She recalls that Captain Adolf is level 60, so level 40 must be considered a very high achievement. The whole idea of field training suddenly becomes intriguing to her. Since the game she remembers showed events from Alicia's perspective as a central noble, she realizes this is a chance to see how the regional nobles train. She gets incredibly excited to see how they level up. Sensing her excitement, the headmaster sternly reminds Miss Yumiella that she is a supervisor. He then bluntly tells her not to do anything weird, explaining that he's heard her leveling methods are unconventional and he wanted to be perfectly clear. Yumiella is left speechless by his directness. Later, during the field training in the forest, the students are having an easy time. It's a one-sided massacre against the few weak monsters that appear, and Yumiella watches from a distance, thinking how peaceful it all is. A teacher soon calls for a 10-minute break, telling the students to use potions for their injuries or to restore their magic. During the break, the students are chattering amongst themselves while one complains about how awful potions taste. Yumiella walks through the woods with a basket of potions for everyone, but as she approaches, one student nervously asks if they're poisoned. She looks on at the scene, thinking to herself how incredibly inefficient their methods are. Just then, a boy with reddish-brown hair approaches her. Yumiella recognizes him as Patrick Ashabaton, the boy who saw her with the cat. He introduces himself and says he also finds the training inefficient because there are too few monsters. He suggests they could handle more if they split into a vanguard and a rearguard. Yumiella confirms this is how they train in his family's domain and internally marvels at the fact that it's been a long time since she had a proper conversation with another student. Patrick explains that their strategy involves the vanguard pinning the monster while the rearguard attacks. Yumiella asks if this leads to imbalanced leveling, and he confirms experience points are based on the damage dealt. He adds that the strategy can be reversed, with the rearguard controlling the monster while the vanguard attacks, but this formation is less stable. Yumiella internally concludes that group fighting is indeed less efficient, which is why even a strong knight like Captain Adolf has only reached level 60. She feels a sense of satisfaction, as this confirms her own solo leveling theory is sound, though she admits she has no experience working in groups. Patrick asks if his strategy would work with the current group of students, and she agrees they have the numbers. He laments that it's all pointless without more monsters to fight. In response, Yumiella declares she has the perfect item for that very problem and pulls out a monster summoner's whistle. Patrick is horrified and shouts for her to stop, but it's too late as she blows the whistle with a sharp tweet. Instantly, the forest comes alive with monsters. Patrick springs into action, taking command and shouting for spears and shields to form a front line. He issues rapid-fire orders for the vanguard to hold the monsters in place and for the rearguard to attack with ranged spells, also reminding everyone to switch to weapons if they run out of magic and to retreat and heal with potions if they get hurt. Large wolves and boars swarm out from the trees, and the students brace for the attack under Patrick's command. The battle is intense, and he expertly directs his classmates, ordering them to realign their shields and retreat when necessary, constantly checking to see if they are okay. After a fierce battle, the students are left panting and exhausted. Patrick, leaning on his sword to catch his breath, looks over at Yumiella, who seems impressed. He then walks up to her and angrily demands to know what on earth she was thinking. Yumiella is confused by his anger, assuming he's mad because the rearguard is exhausted while the vanguard didn't get to level up. Believing she has found a fellow leveling enthusiast, she tells him not to worry and happily blows the whistle a second time. She explains that since some students are out of magic, she will keep the monsters under control this time so everyone can level up. Addressing the fearful, murmuring students, she reassures them and promises that she will control the monsters so the vanguard can land the finishing blows, vowing that not a single hair on their heads will be harmed. She then casts her spell, Dark Bind, and shadowy black tendrils erupt from the ground, ensnaring the monsters and holding them completely still. She then calmly invites the students to attack. The students, however, are frozen in terror, not of the monsters, but of her magic. When a student timidly asks if the monsters will attack, she assures them they are completely immobilized. She explains her magic is called Dark Bind, and is useful because it doesn't inflict much damage. To prove it safe, she casually places her own arm among the shadowy tendrils, showing that she is completely unharmed. Convinced, the students finally rush forward to attack the helpless monsters, cheering about the magic stones they'll get. Patrick then walks over to Yumiella and asks her to please, from now on, Tell him before she uses the monster summoner's whistle. After the training session concludes, Yumiella praises Patrick for his great performance and superb leadership, correctly guessing that he has hunted monsters before. He confirms that as a member of a Margrave's family, he had battle experience even before coming to the academy. He then sighs and asks her if she truly didn't mean any harm with her reckless actions. As he is talking, a lone surviving wolf leaps out from the bushes right behind Yumiella. Without a second's hesitation, Patrick shoves her out of the way, and the wolf bites down hard on his arm. He grunts in pain but immediately lands a powerful punch, sending the wolf flying. Yumiella rushes to his side, grabs his bleeding arm, and casts a healing spell. Dark, bubbling energy swirls around the wound as she explains that healing spells also exist in dark magic, though the game version of her character never used them. She also mentions its weak point: it's incredibly gross to look at. Once the grotesque healing is complete, she asks if he is okay and thanks him for saving her, but then questions why he would jump in front of her. Patrick apologizes, saying he thought she was in danger. Yumiella gives him a blank stare and flatly states, "I'm level 99, making the idea of her being in danger seem absurd." Patrick expresses his relief that she's alright, admitting he was worried dark magic healing might have negative side effects on someone with a different magic type. He then scolds her for being so careless, pointing out that she doesn't even use a protection amulet and warning her that a surprise attack could be fatal. Yumiella is left completely stunned, slowly realizing that he was genuinely worried about her and truly wanted to protect her. For the first time, she feels embarrassed and clenches her fist. In the background, Patrick's voice can be heard declaring that the monster summoner's whistle is now officially banned for Miss Yumiella. The eventful field training, Yumiella was summoned by the headmaster, just as she had expected. She found him sitting comfortably with a teacup, and he immediately brought up the topic of her dark magic, asking if it was truly capable of healing. Yumiella calmly confirmed that it was, adding that it was powerful enough to grow an entire arm back. The headmaster seemed intrigued and asked if she had ever done that before. Internally, Yumiella found the whole conversation trivial compared to the long lecture Patrick had given her about the monster summoner's whistle, and she wished everyone would just let the matter go while wondering if her leveling methods were really so strange. She nonchalantly told the headmaster that yes, she had regrown her arm once after it was cut clean off at the shoulder, a comment that caused a visible twitch on the headmaster's face. She silently recalled how close a call it had been, because if the angle of the attack had been slightly different, it would have been her head, and not even her magic could fix that. Changing the subject, the headmaster asked about the progress of Prince Edwin and his friends, William and Oswald. Mentioned their training was going smoothly and asked if they had defeated all the monsters. He reported that the three of them had indeed defeated every monster that appeared, which was not the desired outcome, but it earned them praise from their fellow students. He added that William had gone all out while the prince and Oswald handled the rest, showing good teamwork among the childhood friends. Yumiella then asked about Alicia's performance during the training. The headmaster informed her that, like the other students, Alicia had not managed to defeat a single monster. He expressed concern, stating that as a commoner who was granted special enrollment for her rare light magic abilities, Alicia's leveling could not be allowed to fall behind. Yumiella had a sudden realization, concluding that the prince and his friends were likely just trying to show off for the girl they liked. The headmaster conceded that while he'd like to chalk it up to young love, they couldn't be sure from the report alone, and the fact remained that Alicia's light magic needed to be strengthened, even if she lacked the opportunity to do so during the training. He told Yumiella they might need her help with this task. A determined look crossed Yumiella's face as she imagined how happy Alicia would be in a place where her magic was most effective, and she declared that when the time comes, she would throw Alicia into a dark-type dungeon to train. Moving on, the headmaster mentioned a request from the Magical Item Research Division. They needed help testing the durability of a new material intended for armor, and Yumiella agreed to assist. As she thought about it, she recalled that magical items, which are imbued with magical energy, were common in this world, serving as everything from armor and weapons to everyday appliances, much like in her old world. Her own beloved XP amulet and monster summoner's whistle were also magical items. The headmaster handed her a sample plate of the material, explaining that it had already withstood a test from Captain Adolf, but the researchers wanted to know its upper limits. Yumiella casually took the plate and, without any visible effort, simply bent it. When asked how much power she used, she admitted she didn't know but promised to be more conscious of her strength in the future. The headmaster, who couldn't even make the plate wobble, clenched his fists in disbelief and thought that perhaps he should work on controlling his own strength as well. After that day, Yumiella's lonely life at the academy began to change. Patrick started speaking to her frequently, often about her use of the monster summoner's whistle. During a sparring class, when the instructor told everyone to find a partner, Yumiella stood alone as usual, observing that Patrick seemed to have many friends. To the surprise of their whispering classmates, Patrick walked over and kindly offered to be her sparring partner, something no one else had ever done. Though she initially tried to decline, thinking he had other friends to train with, he insisted, saying he owed her one for healing his arm. He then laughed and pointed out that she was the reason he needed healing in the first place. This easy back and forth was new to Yumiella, and she realized it was the most she had ever gotten along with anyone in this world. While sparring, Yumiella accidentally struck Patrick too hard, sending him crashing to the ground. She rushed over, apologizing profusely as she healed his injuries, realizing she needed to be more careful with her overwhelming power. Patrick, however, was quick to get up, thanking her and saying that seeing her swordsmanship was very helpful for him. He asked her why she wanted to get even stronger when she could already defeat the Demon Lord, and she half-heartedly replied that the world is a vast place and someone stronger might exist. This led him to ask if she truly believed the Demon Lord would be resurrected in 2 years. Yumiella admitted she didn't know, as it could be Prince Edwin's delusion or a secret the king was hiding. Patrick explained how the prince's recent lovey-dovey behavior with Alicia, a commoner, had led many students to believe his talk of the Demon Lord was a mere delusion. He also mentioned that the rumors of Yumiella being the Demon Lord had reignited after the field training. Yumiella then looked him in the eye and asked Sir Patrick if he believed she was the Demon Lord. He immediately dismissed the idea, stating that the Demon Lord is known to be male and that he couldn't stand how people used her black hair as the only proof against her, calling such thinking ignorant and simple-minded. He then shared that he used to hate his own dark, almost black hair as a child because of the stigma attached to it. Yumiella commented that his hair looked almost white to her, and he agreed it might seem that way compared to hers. He told her he respected her for being confident and comfortable in her own skin despite having black hair, and he promised to never judge anyone by their hair color. Touched, Yumiella told him his ash-gray hair was wonderful, and he thanked her. After another sparring session, he complimented her amazing dark magic, noting that while it looked unpleasant, the healing felt quite nice. He went on to say that what he found truly amazing was her character. He admitted that if he had dark magic, he would probably hide it, but he had seen how she never flinched or denied who she was, even when confronted by others about her hair and magic. He told her that he saw her true strength then, and he wasn't talking about her level. Later that night, as Yumiella lay in bed, Patrick's words echoed in her mind. For the first time, she considered the original Yumiella from the game, wondering if she had been born with dark magic. The game's plot stated she only gained dark magic after turning to the dark side, but Yumiella theorized that perhaps the original Yumiella had hidden her powers all along, growing to resent the heroine for being celebrated for her light magic. In the end, however, she knew it was just a theory she could never prove. Two teachers at their desks, where one man is shown in complete despair as he is set to have Yumiella in his upcoming class while his female colleague looks on with a cheerful expression. The scene then transitions to a forest with a view of the sky through the treetops as Patrick sternly warns Yumiella. He makes it very clear that she is absolutely not to use the monster summoner's whistle and shouldn't even think about burning down the forest out of boredom. Yumiella, Patrick, and another student walk through the woods as Yumiella, drawn in a simplified cute style, clenches her fists and insists that she is only on healing duty for this field training. She asks for a little trust and reassures Patrick that she heard the headmaster's warnings and gives him her word that she did not bring the whistle with her. Later, Yumiella sits by herself feeling incredibly bored while she uses her astounding sight to zoom in on a group of students fighting far in the distance. Her eye twitches as she reminds herself of her healing duties and observes that the other students are hunting safely in a relaxed atmosphere. She finds this situation lacking compared to their last near-death battle and believes that such a relaxed mood is actually the most dangerous time, a thought that makes her flinch as a distant scream is heard. As a shadowy monster appears and students call for a healer, a younger version of Yumiella is shown in a flashback thinking that the real problem is the relaxed atmosphere because true leveling requires living on the edge. In the present, she watches the distant fighting and decides she has the perfect solution, magically producing the monster summoner's whistle in her hand with a quick swipe. Patrick is immediately shocked and confronts her, asking why she would bring something so dangerous after she promised not to. Yumiella calmly explains that the students are strong enough to handle more and that they need to feel the tension of a real battle to truly learn. Patrick considers her words and touches his chin, admitting she has a point as Yumiella adds that nobody was even injured the last time they did this. She then mentions that the students are all strong enough to take on a dungeon by themselves, a statement which makes Patrick exclaim that anyone who tries to solo a dungeon would have to be insane. Hearing this, Yumiella feels that he has denied a core part of her existence and decides she must make a stand. She looks at him with determined eyes and asks if the students aren't ready for stronger monsters, reminding him that he himself had called the current training inefficient, which leaves him stammering. Having an idea, Yumela declares that she wants the students to feel the tension of battle even without the whistle, which makes Patrick yell at her in confusion. She then proposes a new tactic where she would intentionally wound the students and then heal them with magic, explaining that understanding pain would put them in the correct frame of mind and reassuring him that she could probably keep the injuries from being fatal. Faced with two choices, the students are asked to vote between Yumela's plan of intentional wounds or using the monster summoner's whistle, and they unanimously choose the whistle. Soon after, the forest is filled with the sounds of intense battle as students fight vigorously. Standing alone, Yumela reflects on her actions and remembers that she gets carried away when it comes to leveling up. She recalls that she is from a count's family while Patrick is the son of a higher-ranking margrave, and she worries that angering him could harm her family's standing. This train of thought leads to a sudden panic as she realizes she forgot to address him formally by calling him sir, and she feels a little sad at the thought that Patrick might come to hate her. From a distance, Yumela watches Patrick expertly lead the other students in group combat. She notices he uses wind magic to make his commands sound clear to everyone and even uses earth magic to ensure they all have stable footing to fight on. She recognizes that he is a prodigy at something she is completely incapable of doing herself. After the training exercise is over, the other students crowd around Patrick, cheering and thanking him for his leadership and praising his amazing use of magic. He smiles shyly as Yumela watches the scene unfold from afar.